Welcome, folks, to the first episode of Dust Boot Camp. So here I've got Greg and Alicia from Dust USA, and we are going to talk about, well, this one is just an overview of what Dust Boot Camp is. So first off, welcome, Greg. Welcome, Alicia.
Hi. Thank you.
Actually, we've already spent a few minutes talking about it. I had to stop Greg at one point and go, hey, this is all great information. Can I hit the record button now?
Yeah, that's my problem. I could talk about the game all day.
I mean, that's a good thing. It would be a terrible thing if it was the opposite.
Yeah.
So in this show, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down the different blocks and the different factions, the platoons in them, the units, some of the synergies, some of the things that make them stand out, the uniqueness of a unit or a platoon, and some possible lists. So for those of you who are veteran players, if you have lists that you like in the comments on this episode or any other episode, go ahead and just throw them out. Let us know, because, well, I'm sure there are some things in there that will even make Greg go, huh, I haven't thought of that combination before.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah.
I definitely know there are some evil combinations out there. Usually any that involve chef.
It's an evil recipe.
All right. So to start off with, what is Dust?
So I'm not going to go through the universe and stuff like that because I guess that if people are listening to this podcast, they know the gist of it. Plus, I've said it a million times already, so repeating the same time would be boring. But Dust, in terms of gameplay, is really a whole game by itself and a whole game system. It's the only game that I know of that you can play both on a grid and free form. It's a game that involves a lot of walkers and infantry units, but as Paolo likes to call it, it's a hero game. And the heroes in the game are really important. That's the reason why they all have a name. Because really that's how epic Paolo wanted it. It's a game that confronts 3 main blocks, and I should say now 4. You will have the Allies, the Axis, and the SSU. And the 4th block is now the Mythos, the creatures of Cthulhu, and all the Lovecraft lore. Not a block and not a faction, but something that can be played anyway, either by itself or with others, are the mercenaries. So that is really the list of everything you can play right now. In the future, you will be able to play the Imperial Japan Navy or the Vrils. And Alicia is really excited about it.
Well, which one? The
Imperial Japan
Vril.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That sounded like both, but it sounds like the Vril from Greg.
No.
Also, since Greg didn't want to go into the whole Dust universe explanation, we do also have a previous interview with Greg and Alicia that will be linked in the description of this podcast. So if you haven't heard that part, then you can go back there. Now, on to all the other cool stuff. Actually, I do have a quick question since you seem to distinguish them, but the Imperial Japanese Navy, is that going to be its own block?
Yes, that's the plan.
Ah, interesting. I didn't realize that the Imperial Japanese Navy, I thought everything was saying that it was still going to be aligned to Axis.
No, it's going to be a little bit of a mix. Basically, our universe is moving live, I would say. And right now, the release of the Mythos is for us the right occasion to also develop a whole branch of the fluff that we never developed before. The Mythos has been discovered in 2 different places in the world. The first one is in Babylon, And that's the reason why Operation Babylon was started, but also Operation Condor, because Operation Condor is an operation where the Blutkreuz sends the Luftwaffe to secure some locations in the desert that they suspect have some weird stuff happening in the underground. And the second event that justifies the mythos and the separation of the Japanese Imperial Navy is that they find this island in the Pacific on the Nemo Point, and this island is really, and they wake up something that they shouldn't have awakened. So that's really that. And actually, I would say the big robots that the Japanese Imperial Navy is creating are created at that point to fight against these monsters, because they really need some system of defense to just protect their territories in the Pacific.
Awesome. And there is some sneak peek preview images of the Imperial Japanese Navy walkers out there.
Yes.
They're really awesome, and if anyone's ever wanted to play a miniature game with some of your favorite anime walkers, this looks like it'll be on par.
There's an inspiration, yes. Obviously, it's not going to be as futuristic as one could expect from an anime-based, army, but it's anime-like, and it has this 1940s touch. Plus, obviously, because it's the Japanese Imperial Navy, all the robots are supposed to basically transform into boats. So they're going to have some parts that look like ships and these kind of things. We're really excited about it. It's a lot of work right now. Paolo is developing the whole thing, fleshing it out, and it takes a lot of time. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. And the infantry is going to be based on the naval cadet. So what people mistake for schoolgirls, because the school people from Japan took inspiration from the Navy cadets to find their uniforms. But it's actually the uniform of the cadets, and you're going to have cadets, and you're going to have regular Marine troops. I shouldn't say Marine, but Navy troops. Sorry, it's a French way. We have the same word for both. And then you're going to have some ninjas, obviously,
because it's
because it's Japan.
Japan. Gotta have ninjas.
Exactly.
And I mean, you've put Transformers in there, hitting all of the high points.
Yeah. Yeah. Paolo has been collecting a lot of anime inspired stuff for years now, for decades, I should say. And definitely there's a lot of inspiration in it. So yeah, it's an exciting, again, the point was for this army to look different, because we really want to make the difference between the Japanese Imperial Navy and the rest of the Axis. So there was no point in reusing the same kind of chassis.
Understandable. And yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Even historically, they didn't, use the same stuff. They just kind of agreed not to shoot each other.
Basically, yeah.
So
Another detail also, because you mentioned it at the beginning and I didn't answer that really properly, but yes, we're going to release some troops before making the Imperial Japan Navy as a whole block by itself, and these troops will be able to play both with the Axis and with the Imperial Japan Navy when it's released. So that's the case of Yukiko, for example, the sniper that we released at the beginning of the year for the Dust World Expo. It's a preview, but it's a miniature that has an Axis card, even though it has the Japanese Imperial Navy faction logo, because you can play it as an Axis trooper right now, and it will be playable as an Imperial Japan Navy troop later.
Interesting. I could see that being interesting if that stays as the game progresses. Just that they can be taken, because that'll be the first time that two blocks are allied and can operate together.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely interesting. Now, that's all future stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's flip over to current stuff. And we were talking before we started recording. There's all the major blocks, and each block has its own shtick.
Yes.
So the Germans have lasers, which are a continuous beam of light. That's why you keep getting to roll dice as long as you're successful.
Exactly.
The Russians or the SSU have the Tesla weapons, which electrocute you.
Yes.
And the Allies have phasers. Not enough of them, but they have them. I need troops that jump and have phasers.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I will actually talk to Paolo about it. That's a fantastic idea. I'm actually writing it right now. I'm not joking. It's really a good idea.
There we go. Progress. I will start the modifications on my guys now.
So yeah, each faction, each block in the game has their own characteristics and their own gameplay options. As I was telling you, all armies at a point have some common ground because you are in a situation of war, and everyone will have the same kind of how can I say that order and common chain. So you will have common squads that are common to the whole game. You will have anti-tank squads that are always common to all the factions in the game and these kind of things. But every block in itself, and then every sub-faction in it, will have some gameplay options that really makes them stand out. For the block, for the Allies, obviously the phaser is the most obvious option that you can take that is really exclusive to the Allies. You will have also some troops that are really an expression of what the Allies are. May it be the Heavy Rangers, or may it be the USMC Swarm, for example, that you can play. When you go to the Axis, the laser, obviously, but also the relatively fragile vehicles that they come with. Because even their heavy vehicles, their large vehicles, are not necessarily super heavily armored. So that's kind of a shock for new players sometimes, because they buy a Stummel and they have the feeling that this thing is going to be a kind of a gigantic tortoise, walking through the battlefield unharmed, and then they realize it's armor 3 and it can fly out of the table in one round, and they don't understand why. So it's kind of the characteristic of the Axis. They are fragile. Then you will have the SSU, which is
hold on. Oh, pause. You forgot two of the most important things other than lasers that define
gorillas.
Gorillas. I mean, definitely gorillas. And Mike Cunez, if you're listening, see a game that embraces their marsupial, or no, not marsupial. I can't think of the word. The gorillas and monkeys. Primates. There's the word. Yes. That brethren.
Yeah. And so then, gorillas and zombies.
And then zombies.
Yes. Same thing. Whenever you play NDAC or even the regular Wehrmacht, and then you play Blutkreuz, you will always have this option of a swarm of troopers. You can really play it. It's really easy, for example, to play a whole Axis army without any vehicle. And at first, it might even be tempting, because the infantry is so good and so cheap that you can really be tempted to just overwhelm your opponent with a lot of activations and, count on the fact that you have an overwhelming amount of health points on the table to sustain any damage. And it can work. There are some very valid swarm lists with the NDAC, for example. And I take an example right now with the Tank Hunter unit for the NDAC that is really, really strong, where you have 5 Panzerfaust in a unit for a very cheap point level. So a lot of people are tempted to play a lot of them because they are really profitable really fast. And it's not a bad option, to be honest. But you can be tempted to do that, and then you realize really quick that you need something sturdier either because you need to take the objective and hold it because the scenario demands it, or sometimes you will need to support your vehicles because, as I said, the vehicles can be more fragile than they look, and that can be a shock for some players. But if they manage to put them in cover behind artillery smoke or these kind of things, they will add up to the survivability of the whole army. So you have some resilient troops in the Axis, but in counterpart for that, they're going to be in very small number. They're going to be super expensive, and they're going to be kind of slow. So it's really an army that you can play really. It's really tempted to play it as it shows, and then you learn to play it a little bit differently, and it becomes more interesting. So yeah, same with the Blutkreuz. You can do a swarm of zombies, and it's always fun to play a swarm of zombies, obviously. And it can be quite terrifying for your opponent, but you also need some anti-aircraft options. And you need them fast. So you have the Heinrich, that is already a Blutkreuz vehicles. You're going to have some other options that are inside the block anti-aircraft. So my main choice, for example, is to take a Sturmkönig inside Blutkreuz army. That makes the 25 points of a 100-point army. So you're at the maximum of the block that you can take if you keep the faction bonus. But you have a very reliable option against aircrafts. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely.
So this is the Axis for you. And then you have the SSU, and the SSU is really your regular Eastern Bloc super tough army with a lot of heavy vehicles that are super resilient all the time, with troops that are super resilient all the time. And then this weapon, the Tesla, that is, in my opinion, the most powerful weapon in the game. And I know that it's not a popular opinion right now, but it's a weapon that plays both on the amount of damage that you cause, because your line of hits, of dice to roll, basically, is the same whatever the size of the vehicle or whatever the size of the infantry. You roll exactly the same amount of damage on a heavy vehicle than on a light vehicle. And that is amazing. And then every time you damage just 1 point, so obviously you rely on the fact that no one is going to save all those kind of things, but if you damage just 1 point, the enemy unit that you aimed at is stunned. And stun in a game, that means that you're going to lose your first action next time you activate. And that's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Losing that action, it hurts a lot because you only have so many.
You have 2 normally, 3 if you're lucky. And it's really some vehicles, like for example reload weapons, will be rendered useless for a whole round, because if they shot the previous round, they have to reload. That's their first action, except their first action has to be nothing. So it's going to be nothing and reload, and then no shoot. So that's really a very efficient weapon that can help you capitalize on the fact that you're going to deprive your opponent of gameplay options really fast, and without relying on suppression, which is also a very good mechanism that I love, but we will talk about it when we talk about the Blutkreuz, not for example. But yeah, the 3 factions really have their own flavor in the game, and even though they have, again, common core units that share the same mechanisms, they also have their own personality. So I know that recently the podcast Dust War Journals was mentioning the aircraft capability of the SSU, because you can really overwhelm your opponent really fast with a lot of choppers, and that's reality. That's really a nice way also to compensate for the relative slow movement of the SSU normally. So yeah,
definitely, because a lot of the helicopters for the SSU can carry infantry, right?
Yes, they can carry infantry, and they can even carry other walkers. So you can really bring a lot of your troops across the table really fast. And that's not even mentioning platoons that would allow you to just airborne all your walkers. That can be pretty bonkers also.
And then especially with the Spetsnaz out now, and to go into some of the factions, the Spetsnaz, which everybody has camouflage.
Yeah, when you play the Rosa platoon, all the units have camouflage, and then you can play, for example, the Red Banner with it, and you can have most of your army being on the opposite side of the table round one. It can be really fun.
And so, broaching that topic, each block has its own kind of shtick, like we've been talking about. But then inside of each block is several different factions.
Yes. So because the game developed across time, now it's been 10 years that Dust existed. We are actually celebrating the 10th year this year in 2018. So when basically Olivier developed factions, it was because he wanted to add some extra flavor to the flavor. And the idea was that every faction has really a specialty beyond you using a unique weapon or beyond the gimmick of each block. It was really something different. Sometimes it could also be going against what the block usually is. You mentioned the Spetsnaz, for example. The Spetsnaz were really meant to be a light army that moves fast and that does damage at mid-range. Which is the complete opposite of what the SSU is the rest of the time. So that's that. So, for example, for the Allies, right now you have 3 known factions. Two plus the block. So you have the USMC and you have the Desert Scorpions, the Rangers being the block by itself. So,
and then you also have what are the British ones?
Okay, so for the British ones, and it's going to be an exclusive for you, we are working on integrating them inside the Desert Scorpions.
Oh, ooh.
Because it makes sense. We built the Desert Scorpions a certain way, and the British commandos are really fitting in the gameplay of the army. And it will make more sense to do that than to multiply the factions, which with our release schedule would make it not being released before several years. So it's not interesting for anyone. And I know that we have some players, and not only English, that are really willing to play these units again. So we're working right now on playtests to make them Desert Scorpions.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
The British are joining the French Foreign Legion.
Yeah, the Desert Scorpions, the Long Range Desert Group was an English group at the beginning, so it makes sense.
Ah, okay.
They're the ancestors of the SAS. So
excellent.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a nice combo there.
Yeah, it's going to be the Desert Scorpions are meant to have a lot of phases in their army, mostly on light vehicles or on very light troops. But adding the commandos is really going to help. Not only because they have a really nice platoon that makes them airborne, which really adds to the flavor of in your face that the Desert Scorpions have, but also because it's going to add more phases and give some long range phases options to the army. So it's going to be pretty convenient.
Okay,
makes sense. Even gameplay wise, for the moment, we haven't seen any problem with that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I want to explore the very light troops, but we'll have to do that when we actually start covering the Desert Scorpions more, because they don't really have light troops yet.
No, but they're going to have some. They're going to be released soon. We're going to have a new starter set this summer, this kind of thing. So there's going to be a lot of releases for the Desert Scorpions. Right now, actually, we were supposed to release them way before, but we delayed them because Paolo has a dream. It's that it's to work on hard plastic more and more. And we finally got the time and the means to make the starter set for the Desert Scorpions in hard plastic. But that meant that we had to delay production, because that meant that we had to rework on the whole molding process. So that's the reason why it got delayed. but it's going to be released this summer, and it's going to be completely hard plastic, including for the infantry. Because our vehicles were already in HIPS, but now everything is going to be HIPS for the whole class. So it's really exciting for us. But that's the reason why it got delayed.
Interesting. Awesome.
It is. It's really, we have a lot of things that are really exciting, maybe sales-wise, industry-wise, or gameplay-wise this year. So we're ramping up nicely.
I love how Alicia's just sitting over there like, ha ha ha, yes, there is cool things, and I know them. She's got all the secrets.
Yeah, she does. She actually knows more stuff than I do on some stuff, so it's really frustrating but fun. They have the conversation about the vrills with Paolo that I'm not part of. It's really, really frustrating. But, yeah.
So what you're saying is we need to kick you out and talk to Alicia at one point. Okay,
I got it. That anyway. So, so the factions for the Allies would be that.
And then we have the Axis.
The Axis has 3 main factions right now. So the Wehrmacht is the bloc, but you will have the Blutkreuz that we mentioned already. So the mad scientists with zombies, gorillas, and a lot of lasers, because they have invented this weapon. And then you're going to have the NDAC, the New Dutch Afrika Corps, which is really the desert army with a lot of fast troops, really lightly armored, but again, a lot of swarm, a lot of heavy weaponry for cheap. So
yes,
really fast-paced army, really fragile. And then you're going to have the Luftwaffe. The Luftwaffe is really it's the Air Force by definition. And that means a lot of planes, but also a lot of rocketeers and paratroopers. And the whole gameplay is based on that, going really fast, again, really fragile troops, and kind of fragile vehicles, to be honest, but meant to be placed where you want on the table, where you need them right away. All the troops and all the Fallschirmjäger, so the paratroopers, and all the vehicles are dropped. They are airborne, so you drop them wherever you want on the table, further than range 2 of an objective. That's the only limitation to it. But really, it's a very fast-paced army with a lot of firepower at every range. So, for example, a lot of players play the PaK-40 or the laser cannon, and they want to put it close to the enemy, but actually you can just drop it on your edge of the table and it can shoot across without any difficulty. So it's an army that you can play really over the top, or that you can play really conservatively, and you will never get bored by the gameplay, because really it creates a lot of disruption in a usual Dust game. So it's really funny.
Oh yeah, no, those troops that, oh yeah, hey, I land right beside you, and oh yeah, that's your most expensive walker, and we've all got rocket launchers or Panzerfaust.
That's exactly that.
yeah, and now they have a flying gorilla too.
Yeah, and what's not to love in a flying gorilla?
There's nothing not to love unless you're facing him, and then there's everything not to love.
Even when you face him, it's nice. I faced a couple of them lately, and it's really a fantastic miniature and a fun miniature to play. So it's really, really exciting. So
he definitely seems like he will be fun to play.
It is. It's a nice solo that you can play, by itself, flying around. You aim exactly at what you need. Again, you take advantage of covers so that you don't lose it too fast, because he's still armor 3 and damage resilient and has like 5 HPs, but you really don't want to waste it, so because we were mentioning it a little earlier about the heavy rangers. That's typically a troop that can really fly in contact, destroy something, and still survive the retaliation. So it's interesting.
Right. And, because of the group that he's with, and, his armor level and all that, and being a gorilla, he actually can't join anything else. So he's a lonely gorilla.
Exactly. He's going to be by himself, but he's okay with that. He has no regrets. So.
All right, and
And
so
then the
that was yeah. Okay, I was gonna say so that's all of the Axis. So SSU.
So the SSU, you're going to have three existing factions right now. You're going to have the Spetsnaz. Well, obviously the Red Army is not the faction; it's the complete block. But you're going to have the Spetsnaz, so troops that are fragile, again, using camo regularly, medium range, and really a lot of firepower at medium range, like a lot.
A lot.
And very reliable melee units. And then you're going to have the Red Guard, which is the Steel Guard, basically. So very heavy troops, heavy armor, the heaviest armor of the game, armor 4.
Very infantry unit.
Yeah, very slow and sturdy, damage resilient on everyone. Sometimes they even have melee shields, which means that they're going to have a save in melee, which nobody else has. So it's really, really a sturdy army with, again, short range firepower, but tremendous firepower. So once you're in range 4, you know that what you hit, you're going to destroy it.
Yeah.
It's really, really efficient. The best snipers in the game, all over. I mean, maybe the snipers of the Steel Guard or even Rosa in the Spetsnaz, the SSU have the best snipers. So that's pretty cool.
I have a personal grudge against Rosa and anyone who uses her. She's hurt my feelings too many times.
Again, it's one of the aspects of the game that I love. It's the disruption. It's not just about doing the damage. It's also about preventing the enemy from retaliating. And putting suppression automatically on an enemy is really frustrating really fast sometimes. And that creates some tension, some fear in your opponent. And that's really cool. I really like this kind of moral, jackassery. So
moral jackassery. I like that description.
So yeah, I like that. And then the third faction, which is the latest one that we released, is the PLA, the Popular Liberation Army. And with that, we have
wait, what did you call it?
The PLA, the Popular Liberation Army.
The Popular?
Yeah, it's because it's the Chinese Liberation Army, so they have the popular in the sense of communist.
It doesn't stand for people?
Yeah.
Popular, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's funny, but
it is.
So yeah, the PLA is really, really different gameplay wise. Again, it's really something that Olivier has been working on quite extensively this past few months, I should say. And it's an army that is going to rely on swarm, obviously, of very cheap troops and very hard-hitting vehicles. But it's also an army of disruption because the next chopper that we're going to release for the PLA is going to be a jammer chopper. So it's called Air Controller. And it's a profile of a chopper, a regular chopper, but it has a kind of a radar on top of the rotor and it's going to actually help you prevent enemy officers from being useful.
Oh, wow.
You're going to be able to cancel orders that are given by enemy officers. Yeah, that's, again, disruption mechanism. That's going to bring a lot of changes in the regular routine of officers. I know that some armies rely heavily on reactivations or reloads. And with that, you're going to have to really focus your energy on reactivating some troops or choose to not reactivate them and make sure that the chopper goes down really fast. So
right.
So
and actually the PLA has two of my favorite heroes in it right now.
The Dragon and the Phoenix.
The Dragon and the Phoenix.
Yeah, and again, new gameplay. It's the first unit of heroes that you can play by themselves, that you can play together, or that you can join by themselves or together inside a unit, creating units of 7 for them that are really really fun. And it's really a different gameplay. They are really efficient together, obviously. But sometimes it's worth it to put them in 2 different units just to add health points. So yeah, it's our latest faction, but it's something that we're gonna flesh out pretty fast because it's really it's a success right now in terms of sales. So obviously it's gonna help. But
that's all because of Lucky Cricket.
Yeah, as Alicia, you should explain what the Lucky Cricket is. So, but to say it?
Well, it's the vehicle, the machine.
Mm-hmm. The Nina that is in the starter set has antennas.
It's adorable.
And because of the antenna, you look like a very angry version of Jiminy Cricket. So.
No, it's not Jiminy Cricket. It's a Lucky Cricket from Mulan.
Yeah, it's even better.
Come on. Everyone remembers the Lucky Cricket from Mulan. If you have this machine, then you will be lucky.
Exactly. You cannot lose with the PLA. So.
And they have come out with a walker as well, so that's handy.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I'm because they have the commissar model as well out, but I don't want to buy another starter set, even though the walker's good, the troops are good, but I'm like I want more troops for him to run with.
Yeah, and you're gonna have some more. You're gonna have some more. Along with the release of a new chopper, we're gonna have the Chinese volunteers that are right now out of production, but are gonna get released again. The ones that were sold with the chopper back in the days,
right?
They're actually gonna be provided with a PLA card. So that's gonna be your second choice of troops.
Okay.
So really fast, armor 2, but they're gonna be a nice alternative. And then we're gonna have more troops released along the year. PLA being the faction of the year, so. We're going to have some new troops. There are some stuff that I'm not allowed to say, but heck it. We're going to have some heavy troops for the PLA also that are pretty fun. And we are actually working on melee steel guards.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
That could be really interesting.
Yeah. It's gonna be a really different gameplay again. The new set of rules, the way it has been worked on by Olivier and the guys, is really allowing us to do things differently. It's really the game that we wanted. We've already said that a million times, but it's true. So have now options that we can do that we were not able to do before, and
I think you don't have to listen to anyone else now.
Well, that is definitely a nice part of it, is that you can use your own creative, ingenuity, creative drive to move forward with all those things that I want to do it, but because of sales or because this is actually more popular, do this.
Exactly.
We really want Paolo and Olivier to create based on what they dream about the game to become, not necessarily what everyone else wants it to become. Dust is dust because you either like it or you don't, but if you don't do something exactly the way that you wanted to do it, you will live your life with regrets.
Very true.
For the last block, the mythos, for the moment we have no faction for it. We started talking about maybe eventually at a point, very eventually, make some factions for it, but for the moment it's not even playtested or anything. But as a block, the mythos is going to play again really differently for obvious reasons, but the monsters are really expensive, really resilient. They have a ton of HPs, they have a ton of resilience by itself, but they're also really, really expensive in terms of points. And then you're going to have very cheap troops. So you're going to have this mix of the obvious swarm of units, but also this swarm effect due to the vehicles, the monsters, being really loaded with HPs. That gives you the impression that you're fighting two vehicles at the same time.
So, unless you're fighting Armor 7.
Exactly. But it's also going to be a very fast-paced army that's going to move across the battlefield. We really wanted to give this impression of fanatics, running around with bad weapons and not caring about it and just running in your face a little bit by surprise because they are getting out of everywhere. Their layers are hidden all across the planet.
Right.
It's something that's going to be better explained in our next book, campaign book, Operation Hellgate, that will be released for Gen Con. It's
awesome.
Yeah, this book is really exciting, and it's going to give you a lot of detail on why and how the mythos is here. It's going to continue Condor, obviously, because Condor was really hinting towards that. But it's going to also hint towards the Japanese Imperial Navy and the Vrills for obvious reasons. But it's also going to give you a lot of content for every army in the game because contrary to what Condor was, that was really mainly the Luftwaffe trying to invade a whole part of the desert to control some major points of interest for the Blutkreuz. Operation Hellgate is really the waking up of this whole mythos legion. I cannot call it an army, but it's really of that size, and how every single block is going to react to that, to the fact that they had how can I say that, the disease inside their own countries,
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. And for example, the starter set for the mythos is going to be so a hero that is going to be a priestess that can turn actually into a monster. So you can have miniatures for it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then you're going to have cultists, female cultists, which is the fire squad. And then you're going to have, instead of a vehicle, you can have 3 Migos, which is another unit. So for the first time, you're going to have a starter set with 2 units and no vehicle. But this unit has a game mechanism that is called spores, and they're going to be able to fly and then drop in a range of 1 all around them, spores that are going to hit everyone. And again, no cover save on this kind of thing. So a mechanism that is similar to what you see with the avatar of Nyarlathotep, but obviously less powerful, but still really annoying. And then in melee, they are really not a joke. Like really, they are terrifying. So it's going to be really a fun army to play. It doesn't disrupt the rest of the gameplay of all the other factions. You don't have to adjust your army list to Cthulhu because it's not a game breaker. But it's definitely a different gameplay for people that wanted something different in Dust. So
yeah, it definitely is. I've had a chance to play the Mythos, the core box that's out now, and it is definitely different. The lack of shooting currently, and it sounds like the continued lack of shooting. There'll be some, but not a lot.
It's going to be short range. So the avatar of Nyarlathotep, for example, has a flamer range 3, which is the highest range you can have on a flamer. But at the same time, it's only range 3. So you have to really place your avatar accordingly. And that's what makes it actually fragile, is that sometimes you're going to want to destroy something really important. And that means that you have to commit your biggest miniature to this mission, and that means that you're going to lose it right after that. So it's really an army of making sure that you destroy what you engage, but also be comfortable with the fact that you're going to lose a very expensive miniature at once. So it's really interesting. So yeah,
it definitely is. And that's actually part of what this series is all going to be about. We'll deep dive into all these other things, more about the Blitzkrieg's and zombies and how they're awesome, how everyone needs to have a Totenmeister if you're running zombies.
Yes.
It's actually arguable, but yeah.
I don't know. I fought zombies without one, and I fought zombies with one. I'm pretty sure it's required.
No, I will show you the magic of a von Stein platoon without a Totenmeister.
Oh well, this is true. A von Stein platoon is pretty powerful as well.
It's one of the best platoons in the game right now. So.
But yeah, so this series, it's actually we're gonna be taking each one of the factions individually and going through them in the platoons that they have, because most factions have, or I think all factions have their own platoons. We'll even be taking the non-block, non-faction mercenaries and looking at them as well.
Yep.
They just got some major vehicle upgrades, which they were in need for. But the other really nice part about the Sisters of Mayhem is the fact that they can basically take any vehicles they want and just go, hey, yeah, they were allies. And then they can grab another vehicle and go, hey, that's a war prize. And then all of a sudden they've got all sorts of vehicles and stuff going on, causing trouble.
Indeed. The mercenaries really have a nice gameplay also, and they provide options for all the factions in the game that they are lacking in a way. So it's always good to have some mercenaries in your list. And even the ability of replacing one of your units from your platoon with a unit of mercenaries is really convenient. So
definitely. But all right, that will about wrap it up for the overview of Dust Boot Camp. Any last things, either Alicia or Greg?
I'm good.
Fine.
Okay.
You did wonderful.
Marvelous. All right, so we'll be coming out with the next episodes. I think because personally they are my army. I think the next ones we'll start focusing on is going to be the Allies.
I like that
because I'm a big fan of the Allies. I run them, and then maybe we can do those SSU people.
I think we have a lot of things to say on the Allies. It's a very interesting army. It's my favorite right now, but it's really it has a lot of very interesting mechanisms, and it's a not so easy army to master. So I think it's something that it's going to be quite interesting to talk about.
It will be. But all right, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Dust Boot Camp.